and you have the manpower of 100 men in order to engage them. And as you know, kids and children and youngsters in this age are very much concerned about sex and about sexual life. And when the imam comes and with all his authority and the sources which he quotes, everyone talks to this kid for days in the mosque about the sex which he will eternally have in heaven. So definitely this was what pushes him in the end of the day to perform these attacks. We know these things because some of these kids were caught before they detonated themselves. And this is what they always said in the investigations, that they were indoctrinated by those imams in the mosques about the afterlife, in the Jannah, in the paradise, and what good life they were going to have there in comparison to the miserable life which they have in this world. So I think this gap or this description of the world between this world and the other world is a very, very big initiative to the youngsters, especially boys, to go and to detonate themselves. However, I must say, when it comes to girls, the picture is different. And we know that many of those girls or young ladies or teenagers who committed suicide attacks were actually in a trap of sexual issues. For example, one of them was pregnant illegally, means she was not married, but she was pregnant, and the one who made her pregnant was the member of Hamas who actually gave her the explosive belt, and she actually knew that if she is caught being pregnant with no marriage, she will be slaughtered, so she preferred to commit a suicide attack, killing 3 Jews in Jerusalem in 2003. Another one was divorcee, and she didn't have kids, and she was at home, and the status of those divorcees without kids, and she also committed a suicide in 2002 in Jerusalem, again because she was frustrated because of gender issues. Another one who committed suicide in Gaza, or in the Erez crossing to Gaza, had an affair. She was a mother of 2 little kids, and she had an affair with a man. So this man, who actually belongs to Hamas, he is the one who gave her the explosive belt, and her husband brought her to commit a suicide to the crossroads in order to make sure that she doesn't come back to bring shame on her family. And this way she had a very dignifying death by killing some Jews. So when it comes to women committing suicide, or young daughters, or young ladies or teenagers, usually gender issues is being involved, and these young ladies feel that they are trapped, and in order to get out of this trap, they commit a suicide attack, and this way they have dignifying death.
Okay, well, that was very informed, jam-packed with a lot of information. Obviously, with your experience, Professor, is it professor or doctor? It's doctor. I'm sorry.
Doctor.
Doctor. Thank you for sharing that with us. I'm going to give Abdullah Kunda an opportunity to respond to what Dr. Kedar was sharing with us. Can you? I'll ask you. There's death, there's violence, there's aggression. It seems. I'll just say it seems so extremely wasteful. I don't understand. Can you help me to? I don't think I'll ever will, but can you share your insight on why this even happens? Why why anyone would participate in this type of activity. About that.
All right, I'll do my best, Chris. I think that it's important that we consider some of the things that Mordecai said in the context in which he's presenting them, i.e. modern-day Israel and Palestine. Just before I do jump onto that, however, I just want to quickly touch on a couple of bits that Waleed said that I didn't get to comment on. First of all, he said that there is far more martyrs dying in war than there is in fire and in drowning. Well, what's his objective evidence for that? He's just made a statement with no objective evidence. The reality is, of course, people that die in acts that would be considered by the mainstream community to be terrorism, that sort of stuff will be televised. People dying by drowning and fire is very unlikely to be televised. So I would contest that his statement cannot genuinely be backed up by real evidence. He also mentioned various categories of jihad when he finally got his second opportunity to speak. And I just want to emphasize that, unlike he was in the beginning, I'm not saying that there's only one type of jihad. I'm just emphasizing that jihad does not mean warfare, that there are multiple meanings of the term jihad, and that we have to, again, put all of those teachings into their proper context. So I thank him for summarising a few more of them, but also just want to make it clear that I'm not implying that there's only one. Now, he also mentioned Tariq ibn Ziyad. For those that don't know who Tariq ibn Ziyad is, he was an Umayyad general who led the liberation of Spain in 711 CE. I think, again, Waleed, you've made a statement that cannot be backed up by fact. You said that no historian would say that Tariq ibn Ziyad was fighting a defensive battle. In fact, Roderick, the leader of the Visigoths, had declared war on the Muslims well before the ships landed on Gibraltar, the Umayyad ships. So perhaps a little rereading of history may assist there. If I could now jump over to Mordecai. Mordecai has given us some very emotive images of what's happening in modern-day Palestine and Israel today, and they are very, very upsetting. And believe me, I mean, for those of the audience that don't know me, I do have a very specific family connection to that area, in fact, on both sides. And I find it quite interesting that he's Mordecai is very quick to suggest that there are many Palestinian, and obviously the implication is Muslim children, that are learning about fighting wars against Jews. Well, we only need to go back to the Lebanon war of a few years ago to immediately recall images of Israeli children in Safad writing messages in Hebrew on missiles that were being launched into Lebanon by the IDF. Now, why would the children be doing this if they're not being immediately exposed to war? These are Jewish children living in Safad that are writing messages in Hebrew, derogatory greetings on bombs to be dropped in Lebanon. Likewise, Mordecai has suggested that it's the Palestinians and the Muslims that are constantly barraging Jews with violent attacks. Well, again, that's just not true. If we consider Rabbi Meir Kahane, who for many, many years was preaching hatred and violence against Muslims and Palestinians, not just Muslims, but Palestinians in general. And one of his followers, Baruch Goldstein, who went into a mosque on Friday during the prayer and opened fire on Muslims who were praying. These are unarmed Muslims that were shot in cold blood by a Jewish extremist. Now, where is Baruch Goldstein today? He has a martyr's grave in the middle of Israel, which is regularly visited by extremist Zionists. So, I mean, if Mordecai wants to emphasize the fringe branches of Palestinian Muslims, he also has to emphasize the fringe branches of his own community. Now, on top of that, he suggested that Hamas is constantly engaging in a propaganda campaign against Israel. Well, you know what I mean? That's absolutely ridiculous. The Israeli government, and the IDF in particular, does a far better job of producing anti-Israeli propaganda than even Hamas and Fatah combined. We only need to consider recently the flotilla incident to recall precisely how effective the Israeli government is in making Palestinians dislike it, and in fact making many other countries around the world dislike it. So these suggestions that it's all Muslims, it's all Palestinians, are just ridiculous. And quite frankly, I'm absolutely astounded that Walid and Kamal, as Palestinians, regardless of religious affiliation, can kind of just sit there and listen to it and accept that it's all the fault of the Palestinians and not the fault of the Israeli Jews. It's astounding.
Dr. Kadar, I'd like to give you an opportunity to respond. What we've for decades, at least from my experience, we've seen violence from both sides. What's the solution? That's kind of a tough question to answer, but I'm going to ask you anyway. What would you say? I mean, how do you respond to Abdullah has just shared? Can you objectively look at what's going on with the violence? It goes back and forth. Talk to me about that. What's the mindset? What's been and again? What's been your experience as you see this happening regularly? The stories that are terribly just very sad to hear them on a regular basis. Can you talk to us a little bit about that, Dr. Kadar?
Yes, please. I really don't understand the friend which talks from Australia. I didn't catch his name. And he compares what happened with Baruch Goldstein with the official propaganda of the Palestinian Authority. And I have hundreds of recordings of the Palestinian official radio. Here in Israel, this Baruch Goldstein, who killed these people, innocent people in Hebron, was actually, now everybody looks at him as somebody who doesn't belong to us. Means we deny any connection with him. We ousted him and his family and all his friends. And Meir Kahana, his mentor, was kicked out from anything else in Israel, and actually he was killed in New York, and nobody really cared about this. This small group of the Kahana group is far away from anything which we want to be associated with, and this country actually just threw them out to the garbage. While when you talk about martyrdom in the Palestinian Authority, this is the message in the state media or the media of the Palestinian Authority. There are hundreds of clips which are being broadcasted day and night, especially during the Intifada, of how good it is to be a martyr. Even kids, children, boys, girls, were in kindergarten saying how nice it is to be a shaheed or a shahida. This is the mainstream message, not only by Hamas. This was the message of the Palestinian Authority. And this is the big difference between what happens in Israel and what happens in the Palestinian Authority. However, I must say, this is also the official message of the Sheikh Ikrim Sabri, who was the Mufti of Palestine. And I'll give you a good example. At the beginning of the Intifada, 2002, there was a big debate about suicide attacks between the Fatah and the Hamas. So one day, the Mufti of Egypt, Tantawi, and the Mufti of Saudi Arabia came out with a fatwa which banned suicide attacks. So the Ikrim Sabri, the Mufti of Palestine, attacked them from the pulpit on Friday's sermon, and I have the recording, where he compares the Palestinian shaheeds to Ja'far al-Tayyar, the brother of Ali bin Abi Talib, who committed a suicide in the Battle of Mu'ta in the year of 630 in the face of the Byzantines. And he, after he committed suicide by engaging the Byzantines, he went straight to heaven, and Allah gave him 2 wings instead of the hands which the Byzantines cut from his body. And this Ikrim Sabri In 2002,